Yeah, I think what you were referring to before is that when I about 6 months ago, I had somebody assist me with some research into creative ideas for parks because and playgrounds because there are many different types of things that are being done around the country. And I do have some research pulled together. I did promise to send it to you, and I'm sorry I just didn't get to that yet. But I will send it to you, and you can circulate it. And there are sometimes it's a themed idea. The one in Gladwin is being designed as a handicap accessible playground. So there are features like that that can be considered. And then we can be creative about how you want this playground to look. Now, as far as other park improvements are concerned, um, they aren't already scheduled. They're not budgeted for in the capital improvement plan. But I think that as long as we're looking at improving the playground area, that it makes sense to look holistically at General Wayne. And if there are other improvements that there's consensus for or that people believe are really important, then we can take those. Even this year, there's still time to do it, to try to get some money into the capital improvement plan um, to do specific projects. So that's sort of a second piece of this, which is, number one, the number one project really is to help figure out the playground portion of this. And then number two is to figure out what else would improve General Wayne Park. And we can try to get money into the capital improvement plan either next year or for the year after it to try to do other things that need to be done for the park. And as long as a group's working on one issue, you really should work on both, and work with me on and as well as with Dan Bernheim, who should be looped in on this, because he is actually the ward commissioner for the park. Ward 13, which is my ward, goes within about a block or across the street in some places from General Wayne, but General Wayne itself is in Ward 1. So that's about it. If you have any questions, let me know. I'll be happy to answer anything.
This is a super helpful, Gilda, and thanks. I think, yeah, we need to reach out. I can reach out to Dan Bernheim, just to loop in, like you said, and tell them that we're in the process. I wanted to pass to Sean Wolf, because Sean Wolf not only is taking notes and summarizing this meeting, but he already started doing something together of putting the Google document of suggestions from community members, and also created a little survey that people are basically sending him, one or two things that they're interested. I'll just say that before we start, mentioning, I want to hear from Sean, but something that came up when I spoke with Nick is that, we believe, and I think that most of the people here believe, that this park is unbelievable. It's amazing. It's magical. It's the main reason that so many people have moved here with young children. And, what Nick and I were talking about is that we have to be cautious not to, with too much eagerness to make changes and make it better, not to degrade the quality of this magical park. So again, this is just like a comment that I wanted to share with you after the conversation that I had with Nick. Sean.
Sure. So yeah, I took the survey and the form that I quickly put together, and I dropped it into ChatGPT and had it summarize it for us. I dropped those notes into the chat here so everyone can see it. You guys can read it, but I think the overall consensus from the town and the township and the community members, they love the park. There's definitely some things they want to see in improvements along drainage, but I think structurally and functionally the park is in a pretty great place. I think it just needs some updating, and maybe some new improvements, especially to how the you know, things like the wood trips or the landscaping. Like I said, the drainage after rains was a common theme. And that you could see this all summarized in the document here. And I'll continue as we get more to have just AI summarize it as it's easy and functional to do that.
Were there any comments, Sean, specifically about upgrades, like specific? I know that several people texted me that they said that they're interested, you know, maybe in a gazebo. A few people said that maybe it's worth mentioning to do some, you know, simple exercise for adults, maybe when they're letting their kids not far away from the playground, for them to walk or do some stuff while their kids are playing. Some people were mentioning like the one that, you know, the rope thing. I don't know what it's called. It's like a rope climbing thing that kids love, and that's what we see in some parks, including the Smith Park. So any specific thoughts that you had or that you wanted to mention that came up several times?
No, nothing like that. I think it was all very much just like updating to the maintenance of the you know, the basketball courts, or getting the wood chips out of there and getting a better system for, you know, the grounds and stuff, redoing the tennis courts and the tennis wall. That seems to be a great high traffic area. You know, if I think that us together as a community here that it's on this call could probably come up with all the same ideas. So I think it would be great for us to sort of like maybe split into different like topics or areas and like create almost like subdivisions of this group. You know, if people want to work on like redesigning the playground, if people want to redesign the landscape, or if people want to come up with like the best thing for the high top or the tennis courts, like we could kind of split up and then come back together to make it more efficient in time, probably.
I think it's a great idea, and you know, maybe we can even consider, like, let's say that we have now 12 people on this, you know, committee group. Perhaps if you know, we ask other members who would be interested in this section or the tennis courts or whatever, the subdivision, other people can join the group. Rachel, you commented on, I think this is Rachel Gutman. Her husband is a dermatologist. Did you comment? You want to mention what you commented? I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it is Rachel Gutman. Hi, everybody. I was just talking to my husband Ari about the shade, particularly over the top area of the playground. And there isn't a lot of shade over there. And he was saying that the AAD offers grants. Sometimes you need a dermatologist to sponsor that, but he'd be happy to do that. And we can apply because, you know, I'm sure there's a limited amount of funds, and maybe that would be a good way to get that covered. A shade structure.
I think it's a great idea. Okay, great. I think yeah, you took this note. I think that Sean, maybe Rachel and her husband Ari can, you know, can start this process if this committee is interested. I think it's a great idea to have shaded areas.
Yeah, so
Mitch,
if you give us feedback, we can do a little more digging on that if people are interested in that.
perfect. Mitchell.
I just wanted to point out that at the Earth Day celebration, we did have a form out for people that both asked if they wanted to be part of this planning and also what areas. I know I've sent a copy to Gilda and also to Nick. So there probably is already somewhat of a division. I also just want to mention one thing that really concerns me, which is along the path that divides the main part of the park from the sort of forested area. A lot of it is not fenced. And I know I've seen kids, we lived here 26 years. We lived 2 houses from the park, trying to sled down that very steep slope, which is very dangerous. And it's got to be an amazingly cheap thing just to extend the wooden barrier all the way across that section of the park so that kids aren't hurting themselves.
That's a great idea. I was just walking with my kids today, and the kids of my sister was in town, and one of them almost, you know, was playing and running, and so, and it's very steep, and so I think it's a great idea, Mitchell. Okay, let's open it up. Who wants to comment or talk or have suggestions, or, you know, just talk about the process or the park? Ramon, we can't hear you. So, yeah, I mean, anybody who wants to mention something, please go ahead. But I think there's already some ideas.
Oh, hey, Yair. Hey, everyone. Sorry, there's background noise. We just pulled into our driveway right now. I'm happy to be, I love being a member of this community. I think our park is already amazing. I love how it's natural. I love how our kids can play there every day. I think, yeah, the drainage comments are great. I think in terms of playground equipment, if that's the main focus of this grant, some things that I forgot to mention on my little form that we submitted was that like balancing structures for kids. I think like the park would, it'd be nice to have some kind of balancing thing. And also there's always, the kids love the monkey bars. There's always like lines of kids along the monkey bars. We're gonna like update some of those structures, maybe add something with balancing in monkey. But I love how our park has that natural feel about it. So that, it's already pretty perfect.
Can I add something?
Oh, here, my husband wants to add something. This is Brian.
Hi, this is Brian Mandel. I just have a question. Do we know how much has been budgeted in the capital improvement plan for park improvements? Has that been allocated yet?
Excuse me. In general, the playgrounds run around $1 million. I don't know. I could check and see what the number is in there that's currently budgeted. But in general, but that's not for all park improvements.
Mhm.
That is for the playground upgrades. So we'd probably have to put in additional money for other improvements to the park. So I know that I was just over at Wynwood, I think it's Wynwood Valley Park, and there are these very natural looking stairs that go down into the park. And the problem is that for people who are older, there are no handrails. So we raised the issue of whether we should have handrails. That's something that would have to be budgeted. Same thing, like if you're talking about adding fencing, that is something that would be budgeted separately from what's already there. And we'd have to, bring that issue to Donna as a proposal, and she'd have to cost it out, and, we'd have to try to get it into the capital improvement plan if it's something that she agreed and, staff thought was a good idea. Does that
Gilda,
answer the question?
I just wanted to clarify, this is Yair again. A question. So what we're talking about, like what you were mentioning, for example, the upgrades that were done at the Gladwin Park. So this, or what we're talking about, is essentially mostly on the games, on the parks, on all the carousel and the monkey bars, etc., and not for the rest of it, like the steps and the fencing and the trail, etc. That's what the budget is focused on.
They're two separate issues. In other words, what's already in the capital improvement plan is upgrading the playground. Now that, in the Gladwin situation, they put in, it's not wood chip, they're putting in a different kind of surface that makes it more accessible. And so that's a possibility, is that there could be a new, a resurfacing and of the whole playground area. That's a possibility. They picked out new play equipment. So, a lot of the discussions have gone back and forth about how many toddler swings and how many of this kind of piece of equipment and that kind of piece of equipment. Donna will know what the many different options are. And, I'm sure we'll be able to share information, but if you have ideas or do research, or I'll share some research, and you may come up with ideas about things that you think would be fun for the neighborhood. But that's all what's already planned for 2025. That's in the capital improvement plan. The other park improvements if it's going to be adding pathways, if it's going to be adding, obviously drainage is something everybody knows is a problem, and that's going to have to be dealt with. But problems like, if you're talking about wanting a fence so that take away all the fun for the kids to go sledding, which they love to do there. But that, a fence is a separate issue and would have to be brought up separately and taken to staff to see whether or not they think it's a good idea. And then if they think it's a good idea, then they would have to cost it out and try to get it into the capital improvement plan for next year or the year after. That's the process. So
Understood. Very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gilda.
Sure.
Jamie.
Hi. Actually, I had a separate question, something separate I want to bring up, but just to ask to follow up, Gilda. So, for example, my son's school, they redid their playground, and drainage was a major issue, and they did a lot of fundraising for it, but fixing the drainage was a huge part of that budget. So I'm just curious, does the budget allotted for this, does drainage come out of that budget? Fixing that first? Go ahead, sorry.
To me, I wouldn't think so, but I don't think you should worry so much about the budget. I think you should worry about what you want.
Great.
And then, make it a wish list. And then there are gonna have to be compromises. Well, this is gonna break the budget. This is what happened. There were some people in Gladwin who wanted, they wanted to put in all sorts of extra money to make a super duper fancy playground. And we the township really sort of said, no, nobody's playground can be, twice as expensive and fancy and, and wonderful as, because it's not fair to the others.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be sort of some constraints on it, but, think of what you'd like to have. And then we'll see what the budget will accommodate. Donna will work with you.
No, that's great. That's great. When we were doing it for, when it was private fundraising, such a large amount of that went towards drainage. So that's great. That's great to hear for me.
I would assume that if there is a serious drainage problem that needs to be corrected,
yeah,
that's, I wouldn't worry about where the money is going to come for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's just figure out what kind of playground you want to have. And then we'll worry about making the budget work.
And then, thank you. And then just to follow up, so then why I had raised my hand, and let me just lower it now before I forget, is that I wanted to join this group. So we moved to the neighborhood a few years ago, but my children are a little bit older. I have an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old. My 14-year-old kind of skulks around the park and occasionally plays basketball. When I asked him earlier, he said, yeah, it'd be great if they could have paintball, which I don't think is happening. So I think he's phased out a little bit and is more just comes to play tennis and soccer and walk around. But my 11-year-old still uses it. And I wanted to join mostly just to represent a voice or be a voice for those in the neighborhood with kids that are a little bit older that aren't necessarily as focused on just the playground, but that are still using the park. So, so that's one of the reasons I wanted to join. But the other, and I think I was on the same page as Jackie here. I myself remember playing on the monkey bars, but also the swinging rings. I would say from about 3rd grade through 5th grade, and pretty much almost every girl I knew and some boys, but like I could stay on those things for hours. And so I just think as the kids, some of them do it now, but when their upper body strength really starts to develop, I feel like that's something that I would love to see as a specific structure added to what's already there or standing on its own. So I just wanted to second that.
I think one more thing that I wanted to just mention is that came up on the conversation that I had with Gilda, is that eventually when we have a plan, I think, and Gilda, correct me if I'm wrong, when we have a plan in terms of things that we would like, there should be some sort of a consensus, either a meeting or email or some sort of a way to allow community members to veto or decide. Because even in this little group that we had, Mitchell suggested to put a fence between the park and the forest. But Gilda said from her experience, a lot of people for many years have been using this as a slide. So I'm just giving this and they love it. So I'm just giving this as an example as maybe there's going to be things that not everybody will agree upon. And we need to have some sort of a mechanism, Nick, eventually to make sure that the community overall, the consensus overall positive. And then one more thing that I wanted to mention about what Mitchell mentioned, was saying is that I think it's important, Mitchell, what you mentioned, that there are other people who are starting to do the work or be part of this. And I think it's important to add them to the efforts. I mean, they may not, we published, Nick sent this email and suggested for everybody to join the WhatsApp group, but perhaps if people are out, we should communicate with them individually and ask them if they would like to rejoin this group. So that's just a comment that I wanted to make. So who else wants to talk or has any suggestions or thoughts?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Hake. I live across the park. I just moved in about a year ago. And my two kids are 5 and 7 and love the park. And just wanted to, Jamie, you mentioned soccer, your kids playing soccer. And I was curious, like, what are people's thoughts? This is beyond like the playground equipment, I guess. But, I've heard like a soccer field kind of being talked about. What are people's thoughts on that? I know it kind of like if you put in a whole high school size field would limit what we could do with some of that field space. And then it just occurred to me, like, what about one soccer goal? And I don't know, I guess I just was wondering if people want to talk, I guess just share the thoughts on soccer. What do you think your kids would want, Jamie, or having older kids yourself who play soccer? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I was talking, my husband and I were talking about that in the car when I was getting ready for this. So my daughter does play soccer, and we had, and I think I saw in a comment on the Google Doc, with every age, right, every 2 years or so, the soccer goals get bigger, the fields get bigger. My daughter's now going from 9v9 to 11v11, et cetera, et cetera. So I think in terms of the neighborhood folks that I've spoken to at her age, I think one of the complaints is just that there's no actual soccer goal. Like, I think it gets taken down in October, November or something, and then it doesn't come back out again until the spring. And so what I've heard really is just that when you go to play, Gilda, sorry, did you want to say? Oh, I thought somebody was trying to pipe up, but I don't know when, but I think that's what I've heard, that just you go there and there's no permanent structure to actually like have a pickup game if you want to. So you end up having to bring your own goals or set it up with coats, and that doesn't really work. So I know also that little leagues, they come and they play there, but I guess that's just in the rec leagues. I mean, I guess by then the goals are already up. I don't have like a big idea other than wanting to have permanent goals there, or at least access to goals that you could easily bring out if you wanted to play. But I like the logistics of all of this. I don't know how it would work. Anybody else?
Well, I
Right,
think
thanks.
the idea of having one goal makes sense. I know my neighbors across the street have purchased soccer goals with their own
Okay,
money
got it,
and put
thanks.
them
Okay.
in the park. And then they've gotten like vandalized or destroyed. So I think like one for kids to go practice on would be ideal. And that way it wouldn't really interfere too much with the field or the other events that are going on. So I think that's a good idea.
Thanks all. Sorry, I got to head off. Sorry.
I was just going to say that I know that the park is used for Little League. I know that seasonally it's used for multiple different purposes. I will ask Donna if she can just tell me like the schedule for what it's used for all year long. And then maybe that would help figure out whether or not some of these things are feasible.
Gilda, let me ask you a question. What, in your opinion, hearing this, and you see that there's a lot of parents who are very motivated and, they love this park, like the 14 people who are on this call. What is your opinion? You know the system better than anybody. What should be our next steps at this point?
I think that your next step should be to put together the list of the sort of absolute essentials of what you think needs to be done. You need to have a new surface. You need to have drainage. The things that you think are absolutely essential. And then I think you should put together a nice wish list of what you'd like to see, if you could redo this playground area especially. But, you know, what type of equipment you'd like, you know, and try to get some consensus and just gather information at this point. And then reconvene in a few weeks when you have more information and more information from people in the community. And I will, in the meantime, talk to Donna about what would be helpful from her perspective. And if she has ideas for what would be used, what would be useful. And maybe she has materials that would be useful for you to look at. So I think that's sort of to me is the next step. You know, put your wish list together, and I'll reach out to Donna and try to get a little bit of information about how the process would be helpful from her perspective.
Thank you very much. And I have to email her back anyway, so I'll also mention that we had our meeting today. Is there, as far as you know, Gilda, you mentioned that this is a little bit time sensitive and we should not, you know, keep going on for many months. Is there, as far as you know, some sort of like a hard deadline that we should, before the end of whatever, August or September, we should send all of our consensus wish list to Donna?
No, I don't think it has to be on any tight time frame like that. This, as I said, this is in the CIP for 2025 now. At least in the preliminary CIP has this being done in 2025. So it probably would really gear up, you know, the end of this year, beginning of next year. I can talk to Donna and I'll find out what would be helpful for her and on what timeline. And I'll let you know. And then
That would be amazing.
Then you can circulate it to everyone. But I thought that at this point, you know, since we know what's going to be happening, now is sort of the time for everybody to kind of get on board, start thinking about it, start researching, start looking at options, and to see what the community would like to have.
This sounds great. Any other, I think this is good. We have already a plan. I mean, Sean, you're taking notes, so you'll add, you know, we need to add a few people like Mitchell mentioned, either Mitchell or Nick will add them or ask if they're interested in coming. Gilda will speak with Donna Heller. I'll close the loop with her on an email, and yeah, we'll start working and building this wish list. What do you guys all think about having, like some of you mentioned, subcommittees of, you know, the playground / the sports / the soccer, or you know, or the trail upstairs? Any thoughts about it? Because it sounds like from what Gilda is mentioning, the focus now, at least, of this project is more the playground. But I do think that we should talk about things beyond the playground. Thoughts?
I
I'm sorry. I was just going to clarify that the timetable for other capital improvements is much tighter than the playground equipment. So in other words, if you want to get anything into the capital improvement plan for next year for other improvements to the park, that process is going to happen over the course of the early part of the fall. So we're going to have a budget meeting in September 4th when we come back. And I think that the CIP will be pretty much finalized by November. So if there are specific things that you think need to be done that should be in the CIP for next year that are separate, that feedback would be sooner rather than later.
So this, for example, the draining, because I'm just walking by the playground now and it's all, you know, a huge big puddle. So that should be also brought up.
Yes, I will talk with Donna about that. I'll put that on my list. Yeah, if you, because I'm not able to take notes tonight. So if you can just shoot me an email or something and just my to-do list after this.
Okay, Sean, you're on it.
Somebody send me a to-do list of what I have to talk to Donna about. And I will, you know, I'm sorry, I just, right now, I'm not able to take notes. So that I will then follow up next week on it.
Perfect. Mary?
Yeah, hi. My name is Mary Bilbao. I've got 3 little kids. Kind of a comment, it might be helpful if there's sort of someone from, younger kids, if we're doing like subcommittees. I don't know about subcommittees, but sort of a representative from different ages. I don't really know what teenagers want, I might know what little kids want right now. And so that might just be sort of a helpful thing if we were be able to have that. But one thing that my kids are super into, and a lot of parks are doing it, I don't know if anyone has done this, but these like splash pads parks, and they are so cool. I'm sure they're very expensive, but they just have recycled water that's like running through, and it kind of shoots out in different places. And I mean, you basically just sit there and your kids are like completely entertained for hours and playing with other kids, and it's amazing. Not sure if that is like even something that might be an option for our park at all, but I travel to these parks because they're great. So just, I don't, it's sort of like dreams are free. I would put some sort of water component in our park would be really cool, I think.
I think it's a great idea.
But we have just, that is part of the plan of one of the ones in Ardmore.
Okay.
That's being redone this year. It's the splash pad area. And I believe that is in the process of being renovated right now. So you'll have one nearby.
Great. Well, that's good.
But that is the question to ask. And if somebody could please, whoever's sending me my to-do list, make sure you put on the list that I asked Donna whether it's feasible there.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
I second what Mary said. I mean, when I was in Philadelphia and we were in Center City by JFK, there was a little park over there, forget the name, but there was a splash pad and people loved it. Like the kids were playing for hours there. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think it feels like the summers are getting hotter, and I can't even bring my kids right now that often to the park because it's just too hot for them. They're still little. So and this is sort of a little separate issue, but there's a lot of camps that go on at the park that I literally can't bring my kids to the park for the entire summer. There's these camps that run, and the kids at them are usually not very friendly to like little kids, and so it feels like we're kicked out of our park for like most of the summer, which is a sort of a bummer, but probably another conversation for another group.
That's really good feedback, Mary. Thank you.
Nick, any thoughts? Anything that you want to share?
No, I'm liking everything that I'm hearing, and I share a lot of the feelings that people are bringing up. So yeah, I think this is a great place to kind of kick off.
It's good that you mentioned, Mary, what you mentioned about the camps. I'm never here during the day, but in the afternoon after 5, it's usually not a problem. So I guess you're talking about more during the day.
Yeah, they run. I mean, I don't know too much about them. I just know they're very poorly supervised. I think that they're put on by the township, like run it somehow. And it's usually just a bunch of teenagers on their cell phone, apparently watching all these other kids running around. They're like laying all over the playground structures. Like you try to bring your kids there and they don't move. They're pretty disrespectful. I'm pretty much kicked out of the park like the entire summer for the day. So after hours, it's fine, but it's sort of frustrating that it's our park and these are not kids that live mostly not in our neighborhood, from what I can tell. So I think it needs to be way more supervised. I don't know who's in charge of all of that. I just, this is my 5th year here, and every summer it's the exact same.
Gilda, do you have any suggestions for Mary if she wants to email or contact someone? Who should be Dan Bernheim, or who should she communicate?
No, that is an issue. If it is one of the township programs, and this is an issue that I have to raise with Donna. So whoever is putting together my to-do list, please put that on my to-do list.
Okay, and I'm happy to talk to people. I'm not the only person that feels like this. Our nanny tries to bring the kids there. She can't bring them there anymore. And all the nannies that live in this neighborhood feel the same way. So they go to other parks. They don't go to our park the whole summer. So
Wow.
I know there's a lot of people that feel this way. So I'm happy to talk to somebody about that.
Sean, are you getting all this precious information?
I don't think he's on anymore.
Oh, no. All right. You know what? Even if he's not here, I can try to listen, or one of us can try to listen to the recording and create a, list of things to do for Gilda. So, it's recorded, so it should be fine.
Thank you, Yair. As you know, my right hand is out of commission temporarily.
I know. I hope that you're feeling better and that you're recovering quickly.
I'm feeling much better, but I'm unable to take notes. So
Yeah, of course. We'll take care of it.
okay, thanks.
All right. Well, any other comments by anybody? Aaron, Jackie, Jamie Sweet, Mitchell, anybody?
Actually,
Jerry.
wanted to quickly mention an idea that a few people passed on to me when we recently had the concert in the park with the Marion Concert Band. There was a few residents and members of the band who were very excited about the prospect of someday having something of an elevated stage in the park, so we could have just a little bit better platform for musicians or performers to put on shows for people in the community. I thought that was a really good idea, and doesn't strike me as something that would necessarily be super expensive. If we could just kind of find a good spot for it, and it could also kind of double for another, spot for kids to kind of play around with, So I think there's some possibility there if other people support that idea for us to have a space that's a little more, hospitable to performances.
Hey, Nick, Jackie again here. I love that idea. I agree. Yeah, I think that'd be really fun for the kids. Unfortunately, I had to miss that concert, and but I heard great things about it. But I think that'd be such a nice thing for the community to have a little bit, like a tiny, like little performance space, so that we could have entertainers and kind of like an area for like the community to meet, and the kids could even play on it during the day and do their own little
Right.
performances. So
Yeah.
great for creativity. Agree with Mary's comments too. But yeah, nothing else to add here.
I was just gonna say, there's one of those over, I don't know if it's a Belmont Hills Park, but that the park that's right on the corner of Belmont Avenue, where the baseball fields are. They have a gazebo there that's slightly elevated, but they also have what I just wrote in the chat, like you could also put picnic tables in there. Because I think my only concern, and it's been mentioned by many people, including Nick, I believe you said it yourself, is that I don't think anybody wants to see the space become overrun.
Yeah.
There's lots of new good ideas, but also the way it is in many ways is really great. So I think everyone's on the same page in terms of balancing those things.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's definitely merits reiterating. I think any change, we want to be really judicious about it and make sure that it's not
You left us in suspense.
I thought my audio went out.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think Nick's mic went out in the middle of his sentence. Anybody else wants to mention anything else, Aaron, or
I just
anybody
wanted to
else
say
before
thank you. Yeah, I'm just sorry. I just wanted to say thank you. I'm just so overjoyed by the outpour of ideas and the support from you, Gilda and Yair and Nick. Like, I think this is phenomenal. So I just wanted to say thank you. Anything I can do to help, please let me know.
Any other thoughts? Thank you for saying that. This is great, and I appreciate everybody joining, and especially Gilda taking your time, especially as you're recovering, and you know, giving us your thoughts and suggestions, being so involved. We're lucky to have you. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you, and
Um,
I appreciate the involvement of the community here. That's what's so important to this process, and I think it's wonderful that so many people are interested.
Okay, very good. So we will reach out to you. One of us will reach out to you with a list of things to do in the next 24 hours or so, and for you to speak with Donna Heller about several suggestions, and we'll continue the conversation on WhatsApp. Sean is the one who's basically putting everything together in one document, kind of a running list, and this is going to be great. And I love what Nick says and what Jamie says, that this park is so perfect. We don't want to make it any, you know, we don't want to stick on every piece of grass, more platforms and more. The balance is super important. Totally agree. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining late at night, and I wish you
For
everybody.
putting it together. Sorry.
I hope you all have thanks, Jamie. That everybody has a good week, and we'll be in touch.
Have a
Thanks,
good
David.
week.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks.